Good morning, I'm Diana Macedo. Thanks for streaming with us. In today's update, COVID-19 is surging across the country. More than 65,000 people are now hospitalized with the virus in the U.S., a new record, and 144,000 cases were reported yesterday, another all-time high. In Los Angeles, Dodger Stadium is now a makeshift testing facility where hundreds lined up in their cars to get tested. And this morning on GMA, Dr. Anthony Fauci said Americans need to double down on mask wearing and social distancing in order to avoid another nationwide shutdown.
The best opposite strategy to locking down is to intensify the public health measures short of locking down. So if you can do that well, you don't have to take that step that people are trying to avoid, which has so many implications, both psychologically and economically. We'd like not to do that.
As cases rise, some states and cities are reimposing restrictions. A number of college football games set for kickoff this weekend have been canceled due to COVID outbreaks within their programs. And Tropical Storm Eta has hit Florida again. The storm made landfall for a second time early this morning, bringing dangerous flooding. More than 10,000 people in the Tampa area are without power. And now the storm is moving up the East Coast, bringing major flooding to the Carolinas and Virginia. Eta will then make its way out to the Atlantic. But two more storms are already brewing in the Caribbean. And the new unemployment report released this morning shows 709,000 workers filed jobless claims last week. Weekly layoffs have declined sharply since the start of the pandemic, but they're still higher than we've ever seen before the pandemic. More than 21 million Americans are currently claiming unemployment benefits. The 2020 election has officially broken the record for voter turnout. The United States Elections Project confirms more than 152 million Americans voted this election. That's nearly 64% of those eligible. And with 96% of all votes counted, that number is expected to climb even more. Meanwhile, President-elect Biden has named Ron Klain the next White House chief of staff. Biden praised his longtime advisor, saying in a statement, his deep, varied experience and capacity to work with people across the political spectrum is precisely what I need as we confront this moment of crisis and bring our country together again. ABC's Faith Abube has been covering the Biden transition. Good morning, Faith. What do we know about this pick, and are there more announcements coming in the next few days?
Well, good morning, Diane. This announcement is just another sign of how aggressively the Biden transition team is moving ahead despite no cooperation from the president and his administration. This is a major decision for the president-elect and a crucial one as he builds out his administration. In picking Ron Klain as his chief of staff, he's really signaling that fighting this pandemic is going to be top priority for his administration. Ron Klain is known as the Ebola czar. He led the Obama administration's response to the Ebola outbreak back in 2014. And he's well known on Capitol Hill. He's also known the president-elect for decades, going back to the 1980s. He also served as his chief of staff during the Obama administration. He's respected by lawmakers on both sides of the aisle, and he will be critical in building a relationship between Capitol Hill and the White House once the Biden administration takes office. He'll also be critical in also helping in the legislative and political agenda for the Biden administration. And so far, we're also hearing the president-elect plans to make more cabinet-level position decisions coming in the next few weeks, hopefully closer to the end of the month.
And Faith, what are the next steps in the transition?
Well, frankly, the next major step is to get some sort of cooperation from the Trump administration. Right now, the president-elect is still not getting those critical intelligence briefings he needs to have. Yes, he doesn't need to make any national security decisions right now, but he also needs to be prepared to take over on day one. And right now, we're hearing from a Republican senator, the Republican senator from Oklahoma, James Lankford. He's speaking out about this, saying it's a problem. He says he thinks it's okay for the president-elect to get these intelligence briefings so he can be prepared on day one. He was speaking to a local radio station yesterday saying that if that access doesn't come by tomorrow, he plans to step in.
All right, Faith Abube in Wilmington, Delaware for us. Thanks, Faith. And we are counting down to Thanksgiving, now just 14 days away. But with coronavirus cases rising across the country, how can you celebrate safely? TJ Holmes has the expert advice.
Thanksgiving, exactly 2 weeks away, and this is not the year for last-minute planning, the experts will tell you. 3 things to consider in advance. 1, is it safe to celebrate with loved ones? 2, what travel restrictions are in place? And 3, will your favorite holiday groceries be available? When it comes to celebrating, Dr. John Brownstein, an epidemiologist with Boston's Children's Hospital, says he's playing it safe doing a virtual family celebration this year.
We have rampant, uncontrolled disease transmission for COVID happening across this entire country. And the more interactions that we have, the more this will fuel transmission.
But if you do plan on seeing your loved ones?
Many public health experts say it's not the best idea, but if that is something that you need to do, you actually need to be implementing those now. 14-day quarantine, and that is starting right now, that someone needs to be putting themselves in isolation from others, and then testing.
The CDC also recommends added layers to stay safe, like, yes, wearing a mask, staying 6 feet apart, and eating outdoors if possible. For some, the risk of gathering is not worth it. The Flowers family just lost their mother to COVID-19, and they're urging people to skip Thanksgiving this year.
Don't have big gatherings because you'd rather lose one Thanksgiving and be able to share all the rest of them with your family.
And while weighing the risks, you also need to consider the rules. There are travel restrictions in place, but still more than half of all Americans plan to travel for the holiday. New York is cracking down on the size of indoor gatherings, limiting it to 10 people unless they're part of your household.
That doesn't work. If these numbers keep going crazy, you have some scientists who believe we're going to go back to a close down. I'm just praying that doesn't happen.
Governor Cuomo also recently updated travel restrictions, requiring visitors to test negative in 3 days before they arrive, then quarantine for 3 days once they get to New York, then test negative again on day 4 to get out of that quarantine. Meanwhile, in Chicago, a 14-day quarantine is mandatory for anyone traveling from a state on the red list. And in Hawaii, you can get out of that mandatory quarantine if you take a state-approved test within 72 hours before arrival. Get all that? The rules, yes, they can be complicated. And as you prep for an unusual Thanksgiving this year, 2 weeks out, now is the time to also start thinking about what you need to buy for your smaller than usual feast.
My advice would be that you would want to try to shop early for things that are going to be non-perishable, that can be frozen or perhaps aren't going to expire before your holiday date.
Stores like Walmart, Stu Leonard's, and Kroger all stocking up on smaller turkeys. And Kroger is also trying to make sure they keep their shelves stocked. With reports of panic buying, they're now putting limits on products like paper goods and disinfectants to help prevent shortages.
All right, so Diane, about that food, okay, that big spread we're used to on one table, not a good idea this year. They actually recommend possibly putting food in one room and keeping all the guests in another room away from it, and maybe just have one person serve that food. Or here's an idea for you, Diane. Bring your own food to Thanksgiving and only eat that food. Give it a try.
You bring your own food to Mama Maceto's Thanksgiving, she will not be happy, TJ, but we appreciate the advice and we want everybody to celebrate the holiday safely. Now, a passenger has reportedly tested positive on the first cruise ship to resume sailing in the Caribbean. The cruise line was hoping to set an example of sailing safely during the pandemic, but now passengers are confined to their cabins in an effort to stop the spread. ABC's transportation correspondent Gio Benitez has the latest.
This morning, COVID scare at sea. A passenger on board the first cruise to set sail in the Caribbean since March, reportedly testing positive for the coronavirus.
It's a real pleasure to welcome you on board Sea Dream.
The Sea Dream 1, with 53 passengers and 66 crew members on board, returning to Barbados last night after leaving the island for a 7-night Caribbean cruise on Saturday.
If it had gone well, it would have proved that cruising could come back in the Caribbean.
According to the Point Sky reporter Gene Sloan, who was on board the ship, all passengers were tested before boarding Saturday. But on Tuesday, one felt sick and tested positive. He says all guests are now quarantining in their rooms.
The captain came on the speaker across the whole ship and told us that a passenger had started not feeling well and had tested positive. for COVID.
Sloan says the company didn't require passengers to wear masks at first, but now is.
Thank you for joining me in showcasing our COVID-19 CGM Yacht Club protocols.
Earlier this summer, the company had touted its new COVID safety measures on its website, hoping to be a model example for safe cruising in the pandemic.
Ourselves at CGM Yacht Club feel very confident and take our precautions very seriously.
While the CDC does not regulate smaller ships like these, this setback gives us a look at the struggle bigger cruise lines could face as they try to get back on the water. Less than 2 weeks ago, the CDC updated its list of requirements that companies would need to complete in order to begin operating again, including successfully completing a test run with healthy volunteers who will have to sign waivers acknowledging they are potentially putting themselves at risk.
These are people who are really familiar with cruising. This is very important to them, and they see this as a way of getting on board, getting to do the thing they love, and maybe even helping the industry they love.
And there's apparently a lot of interest in that volunteer program. Royal Caribbean tells us that this week alone, they've received more than 5,000 emails. By the way, we should tell you that we did try to reach that company with the latest COVID case, Sea Dream. They did not respond. Diane?
All right, ABC News transportation correspondent Gio Benitez. Thanks, Gio. Time for your latest science and technology headlines. Here's Ariel Reshef.
In today's Tech Bites, Sony launches its PlayStation 5. The new console is out today in some key markets, already selling out in Japan. The PS5 features cutting-edge graphics, faster load times, and a new controller design. It retails for $500. Facebook is extending its political ad ban for at least another month. This as President Trump has refused to concede to President-elect Joe Biden. The tech giant says it is trying to prevent the spread of misinformation on its social network. Google is also extending its ban on political ads. And an Amazon delivery driver met his match in the form of a Detroit area golf course. Take a look here. He says he was just following his navigation system when the truck got stuck in that tunnel. They did have to call a tow truck. Those are your Tech Bites. Diane, back to you.
Got to be careful with those directions. Ariel Reshef, thank you. And that does it for this ABC News Live update. I'm Diane Macedo. Thanks for joining us. And remember, ABC News Live is here for you all day with the latest news, context, and analysis. I'll see you back here at 3 p.m. Eastern for the breakdown.
Hi everyone, George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.